Well, hello. Welcome to the Christel Crawford Show. I am Christel Crawford, but I'm gonna say that the fucking... First of all, I can't seem to not cuss, as pointed out by my person who tries to boost my videos to do Facebook ads. She's like, you said again. Anyway, I think the star of the show is actually Access Consciousness and the Tools, and I called this week's episode Reaction, Tools to Use When You Can't Seem to Stop Doing It. And I'm excited to be here today, and also like intense today. And this show got created because for the last 2 or 3 months, this is a topic that's been showing up in my world dynamically. So if this is a thing that you struggle with, tune in, share it, and if it's not, that's cool too. I actually created a mammoth clearing loop around reaction and the topic because it's something that's been going on for me so dynamically for the past 3 months. So I want to talk in and around it today. I have this feeling that today's episode is going to be particularly disorganized and be a jumble of tools because there's so much I want to communicate. But you know, slow it down, pause it, take notes, do whatever you got to do to get something out of it, and let's jump in. Hi, Christy. So reaction, tools to use when you can't seem to stop doing it. So, there has always been in my life something or some things that people could do, kind of unbeknownst to me what they were doing, that I would tend to get pretty heated about, like react to, okay? And over the years, I've been using Access Consciousness tools for like 7 years. Hey guys, hi Mood, hi Petra. If you guys have any questions about reaction, something you're reacting to, let me know. I will facilitate as best I can over Facebook Live. But I would say in the past 3 months, that thing that I know how to do so well has cropped up probably more than it ever has. And if you guys have been following me in my 14-day journeys that I have on my website, if you're listening to this sometime in the future, you've sort of gotten a sense of what's been going on for me, but it's been really up. And so like I do with everything that sort of shows its head, and I fucking went after it with consciousness. So I started asking, like, what am I doing here? Like, these are people that totally care about me. It's a 6-year-old. Like, what am I, like, what's going on for me? And started unraveling it. Like, I started pulling this apart and going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, am I trying to control people utterly with reacting to them? Am I, trying to destroy them? Am I, what's happening here? Okay. So I will tell you that it's taken me a very, very active, probably 3 months to unravel this. And what I want to offer you is this conversation and also a clearing loop that I made that's 1.5 hours long, along with a telecall that I'm going to do at the end of the clearing loop. So basically, for a price, you can come and get the clearing loop, run it 30 times at least. Seriously, just run it all the time for the next 24 days, 30 days, and then come join me on a telecall and we'll, unravel it further personally. That link is above. But let me dive into what's been showing up. My first level of awareness around this intensity of reaction was that I was doing control. It first started showing up with a friend of my partner's. Every time this particular friend would message my partner and they would get into that energy that they were when they were messaging, I got livid. I got furious. That's sort of when it started showing up. So there was that situation. And then it started showing up with my little stepdaughter, who's 6, and I would just get so hurt and so there was so much heaviness involved in my reaction to the way that she would treat me. And it felt so personal and all this stuff, right? And I could go into each one of these situations and break it apart for you, but I sort of want to give you a broader overview because there's somewhere I'm going with this. So I kind of got to a done point with that and, you know, talked to my partner about it. We made some changes and now things are totally different. And then it started to show up with when my partner would be, listen, he's my everyday, so he gets to be like the trigger and the recipient of all the change. So Andres, if you're watching this, I fucking adore you. So it would show up, it started showing up again, my reaction, when I knew there was something going on, but nobody was saying anything, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So I started asking my friend Cara Wright, who's an X-Men facilitator, about this, and we actually did an incredible conversation about this. It's on my Facebook page, so if you want to go check that out, around this thing. And one of the pieces of there was a few pieces of information that started to give me a little more clarity around what I was doing. The first thing I had to acknowledge is that with these reactions, I was definitely 100% trying to control. Now, that's sort of like what we're going to dive into in this conversation is sort of like the lasagna of reaction. So that's sort of like the top 2 or 3 layers of like, this is what I'm trying to do with this. And that's a really good piece of information for you to have about yourself and anybody else in your life, is that people do feelings to control. That's why they do them. And reaction was showing up for me as like anger, rage, fury, and hate, which is the whole distractor implant universe. And again, doing that in an effort to control whatever it is, right? Which is sort of like, you know, we're up here in the cheese and sauce layer of the lasagna. Okay, cool, I'm trying to control. And I did have to look at that for a while. And I don't know how long that was, like a week, right? I had to go, okay, wow, I am trying to control. And I had to look at, is that actually what I want to do here? And that's another level of brutal honesty with self that is confronting. But when I looked at it, I was like, that's not really what I want to do here. I don't really want to control. Something is there and I want it to be different. Okay. So, but from there, I started looking at that. I guess I just started looking at that further. And one of the things I did is I went into the reference materials, and I talk about the reference materials a lot. That's a huge tome of material that's been discarded from Access classes over the years, so we get to keep it and use it. And I search it often, especially when there's something that I'm dealing with that the simple tools don't seem to unravel for me. So I went in there and I searched control, because I was like, okay, so I want to control. So what is that? And that's another great question you can ask yourself. It's like, hey, what is that? But it's not like, why am I doing this? What's my story for doing this? That shit won't take you anywhere. But what is this? What is control? What's this? What is this? So what was interesting about searching that is that it took me into, and this is what happens, it took me into all these different various topics that I started to recognize myself in. So for example, one of the sections in some of the manuals is called victim, victimizer, and control. That's the section atop this little piece that's been in manuals forever. It's actually in the foundation manual, and I have a foundation class coming up starting tomorrow. So, no, Friday, not tomorrow, Friday. Whatever day it is, forget that. Anyway, so victim, victimizer, control. So here's the premise, here's what's true about that. When I was reacting, I was doing anger, but right underneath the anger was I felt victimized by whatever was going on out there. So right, like I felt victimized by whatever Andres was choosing, but I felt victimized by what Luna was choosing. Luna is 6. There was all this like energy of victimization. Well, what's interesting about that is that when you are doing victim, first of all, nobody can actually victimize you unless you let them. So that's just something that's important to know. And don't take my word for it. If it's true, it's going to make you lighter, even if you don't like it, okay? If it's not true, it's going to make you heavier. So nobody can actually victimize you. And I knew this cognitively, right? But here I am being a victim. Well, the only time anybody, including me, chooses to be a victim is when they want to victimize other people. Now that was a bit of a bitch. That was a big horse pill to swallow for me. I'm like, I don't want to, yes I do. I don't want to victimize others. Yes I do. I totally do. I totally wanted in those moments to punish whoever it was for making me feel bad. Right? And had they made me feel bad, no, they were doing their thing, whatever they were doing, whatever they had going on. I had a feeling about it, which I'm going to get to what that actually ended up being. And then I wanted to punish them for making me feel that way. So it's this, you know, that right there is like, you could describe familial relational dysfunction right there in like 5 seconds. There's relational dysfunction. You did this thing. I hate you for doing this thing. I'm going to victimize you for doing this thing. And there we have all the problems ever created, ever. Thank fuck I am an access consciousness facilitator and I know these tools, because otherwise I'd be a wreck and I'd be creating destruction everywhere I go. So I knew enough about that to know. So I started to recognize myself as what I was doing. And what I was doing was I was playing the victim so that I could victimize them. Okay, that was sort of like, we're getting down into the, if we're looking at a lasagna, we're sort of getting a little bit past the cheese into the, the meaty layer, right? Okay, I'm victimizing. Wow. Again, with the question of, is that really what I want to do? Now, that's a really good question to ask yourself. Is this where I want to live? Is this how I want to treat people? And one of the things I'm loving about that question, even though it sounds uncomfortable, and sometimes it can be, because we don't always do epic shit. Like, a lot of times we choose really manipulative, hurtful shit. Even if we don't mean to, even if that's not really our thing, we do it, right? We judge. So it's important to start to bring light to, is that how I want to be in the world? And I had to really start to look at this because it was coming, I had a 3-month period where it was coming up a lot. I was turning myself into this reactive, controlling partner. And I felt like I was at the effect of whatever was going on. But I knew enough to know, okay, I create everything. Like, what consciousness do I need to bring to what I'm doing here to change this? So I had to look at, is this the partner I want to be? You know, is this the stepmom I want to be? And it definitely wasn't. I was like, no, there's another energies, a universe of energies that I actually am, that I want to be here. You know, I want to be generous and caring and present, an interesting point of view, right? So I started to notice the discrepancies, and you may have to take yourself through some of this process with whatever you've got going on. And okay, so now we're sort of into the meaty layer of the lasagna, right? And I was still sort of waking up or finding myself in these situations or moments where I was still reacting, even with all of that awareness. So the gift I gave myself that I didn't know cognitively I was giving myself is I took an X-Men class with Kara Wright this past weekend. And, you know, I've taken X-Men classes before, and the premise behind the X-Men body of work is that not every humanoid is created equal. We all have different levels of awareness, we're all different. We all have different things going on, right? So for X-Men, if that's light for you, you're probably one of them. Your level of awareness is like so far off the chart, it can't be measured. Now, I've had that information for a long time. Like, I've known that here. The application of that in my life has been less fast, you know, like more slow than the cognitive understanding of, okay, cool, level of awareness. Okay, great. Because I didn't get how that applied necessarily. It's like, okay, I have the cognitive information that I have a level of awareness that's like off the charts. I have lots of other pieces of information, like, you know, that level of awareness makes me a great facilitator. That level of awareness, you know, enables me to follow the energy in my life, and etc. What I didn't get is that level of awareness also comes so instantaneously that in that same instant, when you jump to a conclusion about that energy creates this whole other world of reaction. Now, I probably, in that same instant of being aware of the energy and jumping to the conclusions, jumped to about 100 different conclusions. But it's so instantaneous that you feel like you're at the effect of, you can easily put yourself at the effect of the other person. You can put yourself at the effect of what's going on in your world, right? It's so instantaneous. And so reaction doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like something that's happening to you. It feels like a wrongdoing that's happening to you. And this clearing loop that I made that has changed everything for me, and also the people on my staff that are listening to it, started to unravel where, you know, I was doing, oh, this is happening to me. My 6-year-old stepdaughter is happening to me. My partner is happening to me. You know, poor me is really where I was functioning from. You know, this is happening to me. So nothing happens to you. You create everything. And on top of that, you are super fucking aware. Now, I would say that this conversation is, well, no, I know that this conversation is going to keep gifting to me. But this morning, I had another round of even greater awareness about this level of awareness. And one of the things that occurs for X-Men, and whether or not you call yourself that, it doesn't matter. You've got to look at like what occurs in your life and in your body, okay? One of the things that occurs is that we instantly become and reflect, we just instantly become the unseen, unsaid, unacknowledged, undisclosed, incongruent energies in any situation and in any room. Again, also excellent cognitive information, right? Like, oh my God. And it is essential to sort of have that information. Now it's like, okay, so what? So I unraveled a situation this morning with my partner again. He is such a fucking gift. He supports me totally. He is doing everything in his power to, like, you know, get a better job, bring in more money, make sure we always have groceries, like make sure the house is clean. Like he's so amazing. And once in a while, he prejudges that I'm gonna judge something he's done or thinks. And so he judges himself, judges that I'm gonna judge, and withdraws, and then still tries to look normal on the surface. And I discovered this morning, because it was happening, but I didn't know what was happening. All I knew is that I felt kind of pissed off. I discovered this morning that I instantly know the judgment is going on, and in the past would instantly judge that I knew what that judgment was, and that of course it was about me. And then I would get pissed that it was about me, and then I would separate, and then we'd have this whole problem. I'd create this whole problem because I was exponentializing the energies in the room, which was judgment. Now this morning that started to occur again, and all I knew is I felt pissed and I felt distant, and I had just come through the class. So I was like, okay, is any of that mine? No. Does it have anything to do with me? No. Is it occurring? Yes. Is it judgment? Yes. Okay. And I still couldn't quite not be mad about it, but what I started to recognize is that judgment is really hard on my body. It's actually hard on all of our bodies. But now that I've done so much access consciousness and so much body work and like so much, like I recognize how hard it is on my body. And another thing about X-Men people, or the level of awareness that we have, is that when you touch someone's body, you get an instant download of everything that's going on. And when that person that you just touched is doing a lot of judgment, guess what hurts? It's like, okay, so I could feel myself going, don't touch me. Now that's not normal for me. I like when I'm being me and he's being him, like we're any touch, anytime, all easy. As soon as one of us starts to do judgment, all that goes away. So it was a bit of a weird morning. It was kind of clunky this morning. And we ended up talking about it, and what I started to see what occurred. And what occurred is that he prejudged that I was going to judge, which had nothing to do with me still. Like that was actually from the past, but that's what occurred. he separated and then tried to act normal. And then what we got to was like, oh, that's the thing that I'm aware of and that I get mad about, that I react about. Because I'm exponentializing these secret, hidden, unseen energies in the room. So that what? I guess so that they're no longer unseen and unsaid. It's like, okay, well, cool. If there's going to be hidden energies in the room, I guess I'll be them. Right? And it's so not cognitive. And this is really why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because everything I'm talking about is not a cognitive reality. This is an energetic reality that we live out. And when you don't fine-tune your... This is why practicing consciousness is so essential, because if you, again, you can, I don't know if you can see it, but in so many of these little situations that I've brought up, it's like if I wasn't aware enough to ask a different question, like, well, what am I aware of? Am I just being aware of something, for example, or am I just fucking batshit crazy, which is where I was going before, then I would operate from the wrong information. And I have for a really long time. I've really thought that in this particular area or around these things that I was just really bent and broken. And it's weird because like I didn't really have that much of a point of view about that. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just really reactive and my mom did this, so I do this, so hopefully I'll just keep using tools until it changes. But to know that it's not even that. It's actually that I'm so fucking aware that I become the energies, and it's like, oh, that is now a whole different world opening up. So after all of that, like talking, what I want to ask you is there anywhere in your world where you have misidentified and misapplied what you thought was wrong with you? No. That you've misidentified and misapplied awareness as something that is wrong with you. And everything that is times a godzillion, we destroy and create it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pock, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Now, that's the clearing statement. You can go to theclearingstatement.com and get more information. So that's why that's why I wanted to create a class around this, because it isn't just one facet to this. And so I would say that, once we started, hi Melanie, once we started getting into like the full-on meat of the lasagna, which was like, no, you're not even fucked up there. I'm not even just doing control, although I needed to look at that to get to this, and I needed to look at that to get to this, right? Sometimes I don't need to do that. Sometimes it's like one question and the whole thing just, unravels. But this particular thing was so densely packed with unawareness and unconsciousness, and like I'd been doing it for such a long time and my mom had done it for such a long time. You know what I mean? It was like a way of functioning in the world that was so solid that I had to look at it from all these different angles to even get to what it is, which was just like total capacity and awareness. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. Because once you get to that, it's like, how much do I do that with business and money and everything else in the fucking world? Yeah, you're welcome, Melanie. And that's what opens up your world to a totally different reality. Because you are never fucked up, ever. And it doesn't matter how many times someone says that to you. You won't believe it until you're like in your thing and you're finally like, oh my God, I'm not even wrong here, So how much have you misidentified and misapplied awareness as something that is wrong with you? And everything that is times a godzillion, we destroy and uncreate it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. How much have you... Oh, this is interesting to put a clearing to. How much have you put yourself at the effect of what you're aware of? Ouch. And everything that is times a godzillion, will you destroy it and create it all? Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So in this clearing loop I put together, it's an hour and a half of material. I literally sat at my computer and like recorded the whole thing. I'm like, this is big. And it does, it unravels like all the unconsciousness around victim, victimizer, control. There's actually so much stuff in there that I can't even remember. But if this has been a thing for you, and reaction shows up in different ways for different people. For me, it shows up as like anger, rage, fury, and hate, like those distractor implants. For some people, it shows up as withdrawing. I also react and withdraw. I have a variety. You know, like why just be one-sided when you could do it like 5 different ways? You know, for other people, reacting with shame or, you know, but any reaction that you do, it's so weird because any of this unconscious stuff, like reaction is an unconscious, a choice for more unconsciousness. It loops into the distractor implant universe, and then it loops into the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections universe. It loops into the, you know, it's like any bit of unconsciousness sort of like blends that whole unconscious world. So, you know, once you're into anger, rage, fury, and hate, you're into all the other distractor implants. There's 24 of those, you know. So the key is to do whatever it takes to get to what's really true. Now, for what's really true, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. And nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. And everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. And nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. And by the way, this is one of those tools you can use for yourself when you're doing total insanity. So you just say those 2 phrases. Everything's the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. Everything's the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing's the opposite of what it appears to be. Literally say those 2 things until you start to get to some more space. Because once you're in it, I get it, man. It's like consuming. It's like instant, right? And you're in it. So that's one of the first tools that I started to use to bring me to more space with all of this stuff. Because it's been a lot lately. And then the second thing, and after that, there's a series of questions you can ask. And I'm not saying one or the other of the question's going to work better. There's been different things that work differently for me. One of them is, am I aware of judgment? That's been a key thing for me to ask myself lately. I started with, what am I perceiving? What am I perceiving? And that was helpful because it acknowledged a few things. It acknowledged that there was a what and that I was perceiving, right? Like that was helpful. But what I started to notice is that even with that question, I was still doing some judgment of me underneath for the reaction part. So, but it started to get me aware that when I would ask, what am I perceiving? I was always perceiving some sort of judgment. And listen, judgment has so many different forms. It's people judging themselves for being wrong. It's decision is a judgment. Computation is a judgment. It's, you know, there's projection is a judgment. Rejection is a judgment. Like there's all these different forms of judgment. So judgment is a general term for basically anything that isn't ease, joy, and glory. Okay. So am I perceiving judgment? I would always get a yes to that. Now, I still was going into some conclusions about what that judgment was about or why I was doing judgment or, you know, whatever. Like, it's fine. But then I had to start to look at, you know, I had to start to look at, in the middle of all of this, what was I choosing to be with it all? You know, because the reaction is such a galumped moment, you know, everything's galumped and you're just like flailing around. And it's like when you, I don't know, you get thrown into the ocean and you're trying to swim. You're just like trying to survive at that point, right? You're coping and you're reacting and your legs are going out, right? Like it's like that. So to pull it apart and actually bring more consciousness to it, you just gotta start pulling on one string and going, what? So in the middle of all of this, of what am I aware of, I went like, what do I want to be with this? I had to, for me, bring more consciousness and light to, you know, what am I being with this right now? What do I want to be with this? Like, And that's when I started getting really aggressive with interesting point of view. I have this point of view, because I was still jumping to all these conclusions about, well, this means, you know, Luna doesn't like me, never mind, I won't be around. It was so, there were so many, I can't even remember them all. So that was another tool that I added. And the way that works is literally with every energy and every thought and anything that comes up for you that isn't space and ease, you just get present with it. You don't just say the words. You get present with the energy and go, okay, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. And that presence started to shift it some more. And then I guess the last question that sort of got added on after the X-Men class is like, am I being energies that are unsaid here? Am I being energies that are unacknowledged? And that has been a yes every single time. So that is probably the last question. And then again, like today, for example, this occurred again today. I got all that awareness. I got that I was aware. I got that I was being aware of his world. And then I was doing sort of this separation and quietness and withdrawal. And I noticed that, and I was like, I wanted to choose something else. So I literally just came back into the room and I was like, hey, listen, this is what's going on for me in response to whatever's happening for you. And I just wanted you to know that, so that you don't think like I'm mad at you so I came back in and I lowered my barriers and I was just vulnerable with what was going on, because I could tell that he had no idea. And that opened the door to a different conversation later. Now, you're not always going to be able to have that conversation with the different people in your life. Like, you know, if you're reacting to your boss, you may or may not actually be able to have that conversation with your boss. He and I happen to have an incredible gift of a possibility here that we are being together. So you have to look at what's really going to work for what you're dealing with, but look at what's going to work and not just put yourself at the effect of what you're aware of. I guess I have no idea what time it is. I lose track so easily right now. I want to wrap this up with, you are never, I'm going long, fuck it. You're never fucked up. And even when you're taking what you're aware of and doing something that's less than caring, like control, you're still not fucked up. You're doing the best you can with what you know to do. And when I look at me being a kid and dealing with the intensity of everything that I was aware of, the amount of judgment everybody was doing in my family, I'm like impressed that I came through alive, honestly. The awareness like my level of awareness is, it's stupid great, you know, stupid high. And so, you know, I didn't die. And I developed coping mechanisms to get me through. And so did you in these different ways, right? So we're all doing the best we can. So you're not wrong. You are, however, strong, and there is 1 or 25 things right about you. And that, if you start and you go after looking for that, you will find it. And that's what I started looking for. I'm like, what is actually going on here? What is actually going on here? Hi, Paolo. Hi, Maruna. What is this? So I really want to encourage you to go after what it is, not why it is, because that's a story. You have to make that shit up. But what it is, what is it? And is it that you're actually a controlling bitch that just wants to control the world? That's where I was like, am I just a cunt? You know, listen, I can be a cunt. I don't mind cunt as an energy, but is that just what's true about me? Like, is that, you know, the end all be all of me? Turns out no. Turns out the end all be all is that I'm so aware that I become these things instantaneously. And up to this point, I've dragoned with it. And what else is possible? What else is possible? So share this with a friend that you know has been struggling with this, and join, like, buy the clearing loop and get on the call if this is a thing for you. It's changing everybody who's using it. And also, Write down these tools. Use them. Empower yourself. Change your life. Change your stars. You can. I adore you. I'll see you next week.